To the U.S. state of Michigan now, where the parents of a school shooter have been sentenced in a landmark case. James and Jennifer Crumbley are the first to be held responsible for a gun attack carried out by their teenage son. Ethan Crumbley killed 4 classmates and injured 7 others in 2021 at the Oxford High School. He's serving life in prison without parole. His parents were both found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter and face 10 to 15 years in prison.
Each of the defendants' gross negligence has caused unimaginable suffering to hundreds of others as a result of what happened that day. Each act or inaction created a ripple effect. Therefore, an out-of-guidelines sentence is appropriate and proportional. The court uses the useful tool of the legislative guidelines, which embody the principles of proportionality, while also taking into account the nature of the offense and the background of each defendant. I believe that the following sentences would be in the best interest of justice and are reasonable and proportionate to the seriousness of the matter and the circumstances surrounding each defendant. With regard to Jennifer Crumbley, it is the sentence of this court, Ms. Crumbley, that you serve 10 to 15 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections. To defendant James Crumbley, it is the sentence of this court that you serve 10 to 15 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections.
Well, let's speak now to Kim Belware, who has been following this story for the Washington Post. Kim, thank you very much for joining us. As we said, a landmark case. What's the reaction been to the sentences?
I think this is the sentence that the families, the victims, family members had wanted. And this is a sentence that, for a lot of people in this community, do feel is the right one, given the egregious facts in this case.
And the gun had been given to James and Jennifer Crumbley's teenage son as a Christmas present.
Yeah, the gun ownership, how the gun was stored, these were the big things that the case hinged on. And these were the things that also Judge Cheryl Matthews mentioned right before she read her sentence. She said that Mr. Crumbley had left the gun accessible to this child, and that Jennifer Crumbley had glorified the use of this weapon. We know now that the gun was purchased a few days before the shooting by the father, and that the mother had taken the shooter to a shooting range to practice with it beforehand. And those were facts that came up in both of their trials as not only deeply upsetting, but really highlighting the negligence that the prosecutors were trying to illustrate.
How significant, Kim, could any precedent set by this case be?
This is really at the leading edge of a kind of prosecutions that are relatively new. There was a case in Lake County, Illinois, outside of Chicago, where the father of the Highland Park shooter was given a misdemeanor, or he pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor gun charge. But this is the most serious. I mean, this is definitely one that it is unprecedented, and it is creating a framework. Other prosecutors around the country have said it's creating a framework for how they can potentially hold parents or guardians accountable when their children pick up weapons and hurt somebody.
And briefly, Kim, for those in the US who want to see much tighter controls on guns, do they think that this case, these sentences, could make a difference?
That's still a little bit unclear. When the shooting happened, the state of Michigan actually didn't have a safe storage gun law. So there was no legal requirement that the parents lock up their guns. There is still an overall legal duty to store them responsibly. There is a law now, and it was in part because of this shooting and one at Michigan State University. But it's definitely giving prosecutors and lawmakers, a reason to give a second look at existing gun laws and say, maybe we can do something a little more to up the expectations of parents who have guns when they also have children in the home.
Okay, Kim Belware, thank you very much.